garage for episode 9 of the Turbo Tonner build. This episode we'll put the intercooler kit in, take a look at that, put the walbro 450 in the tank. I've never done one of them before, so I'll be learning as I go and I'll show you how I do it, and throw the injectors in. And yeah, that'll probably do for this episode, but first up I'll show you the intercooler kit that I've got. It's actually off eBay. It's an ASE copy for a Commodore, and it was quite poor quality. I ended up buying it off a mate, his unfinished project, so it sort of gave me a little bit of a head start and give me a good direction on how to run this pipe here, mainly and around the battery. Give me a bit of an idea. Although I had to change it a fair bit to clear everything, it just sort of pointed me in the right direction. That side there was completely changed. It went up underneath the headlight and up. I just changed it and got rid of the overflow bottle and just one welded joint in there that I had to change. Happy days. But yeah, you can see blow off valve, air temp sensor in there. It's hidden underneath, so hopefully the popo don't see it, the blow off valve. I had to put an extra joint in there. It was a silicon coupler in their design, and it was way too long, had to be cut back. Yeah, 90 into the throttle body, VS racing blow off valve. It did come with all the hose style clamps, just the normal ones, so I've got the T-bolt ones. Just I don't want my silicon joints coming apart. 600 by 300 by 75mm thick intercooler. Pretty cheap basic stuff, but for 500 wheel it's more than enough. It'll cool the intake temps quite nicely. So yeah, that's the kit out. And one thing I have done is put the front bumper on so I can put a reference line in for the intercooler. Oh, camera's really hating that. There you go. So that's just a parallel line. I just chose 220mm off the radiator parallel, and I drew that in all the way around for white pan, so that I have a line to cross-reference when I put the intercooler in there. I can measure the intercooler, and then yeah, just offset off that line and cut it out, get it to fit. So yeah, I'll get that bar off because I've got some clearancing that needs to happen in here, and I'll show you that. Just a comparison of the standard Rio bar versus the one that I've modified for the intercooler. This is actually the bottom side. You can see where I've just cut it out, drilled a couple of holes, and these couple of holes are what actually bolt into the top of the cooler. Pretty simple to get the cooler in there. So this is the modified Rio bar installed. You can see where the holes are, where the intercooler bolts into. But anyway, there had to be clearancing done in this corner for where the intercooler pipe comes up. So all this in here I've already chopped out. Chopped along there. You lose the bottom of the little headlight support there, but realistically it doesn't do anything. So yeah, that's all cut. Just cut it with a grinder, and then got my Dremel sort of grinder with the carbide bit in it, and just deburred it. Threw some paint on there. Had to chop the corner off this to clear the intercooler piping as well. There's a lot of, you know, in and out with the cooler piping. Make sure everything clears so nothing rubs. Also had to clearance this bit here because the intercooler pipe comes up in here between the battery. Didn't want it rubbing. I don't really want anything to rub, so everything's sort of trimmed up with plenty of clearance. So yeah, I also had to clearance the bottom of this side here, take a little bit off the lip across this bottom bit here, so when the pipe comes around it misses. So yeah, that's all done. I threw some paint in underneath there, all the cut edges, so that it doesn't rust. Tied it up. So yeah, also poor old headlight. It had to cop a good shaving too. It was rubbing on the intercooler piping. You can see I had to take the corner out of it there. The adjuster still works. Just had to take the corner out. I'll probably end up araldite a little plate on there, a bit of leftover plastic to seal it back up. Can't see it inside. It's like a separate case. So yeah. A lot of empty boxes, all the parts are going in, so I've got all the boxes in left over. So yeah, now I'll start putting that, I'll bolt that cooler in and yeah, start bolting it all in. I've got that cooler and the piping in, so I'll give you a bit of a look before I cut that bar and put the front bar on. See, it comes out there, snakes around, threw the battery in. See, it just clears the battery. It's a close fit, but it does work. I also put the blower valve in, it's hidden in there. So if my good mate's sitting there looking at the engine bay, hopefully they can't see it, it's sort of hidden. And then there's a hole down there, just go straight down. See, through the hole there, straight around. Yeah. I'm going to cut that bumper. I just use my cutter, or my Dremel grinder thing. Just run it in along that white line. The offset, I've got to do a few measurements, but yeah, I'm going to get that cut. Get the front bumper on. Okay, the bumper's cut. Before I put it on, I realised I had to do something about the radiator overflow that I took out. And then it comes up through the hole here, there's a big tank, intercooler pipe in the way now. So what I ended up doing is I've got a old 1 litre oil bottle in there, a black one with the window on the side of it, so I can peek through the grill and see if there's any coolant in it. Hopefully, well, that's the plan. Just drilled a couple of holes in the side there, so I could strategically put a couple of zip ties, and just drilled a hole. You can see the factory grommet from the factory overflow in the lid, so it's nice and sealed. It's just hidden away in there, and the line just runs up around and into the top of the radiator there. Cheap, but I think it'll work. Well, I hope it works. So now I'll jam that bumper and lights on. I've got that front bumper all on. I'm actually surprised of how much it hangs down. I might paint all this black so you can't see it. Stick in with the sleeper theme a bit more. Leave it sort of semi-polished up here, black down the bottom. Oh, it just looks like a work ute. Unsuspecting, but I can do that at a later date. I probably want to get this front bumper bar cleaned up a bit too. Get it painted up. Paint all the intercooler black. But yeah, she's coming together. Put the air filter on. Put the turbo beanie on. I had to replace the exhaust V-band on the back of the turbo, the one that's sent with the turbo. Very cheap. It just busted itself with no effort, so I've got a good quality one on there now, nice and tight. I'm just working on putting a vacuum line out of this port here over to the blower valve. So the blower valve will see engine vacuum and open on back off. Also, I've got some heat cover to go over the main fuel line there, because I don't like how close it is to the exhaust dump. So I've got some of this heat wrap stuff that I'll show you after I put it on. And also there's a power steering line here that goes down real close to that flange. It's going to be exposed to some pretty serious heat, so I'm going to wrap that in it as well. Yeah, it's getting there. Throw the bonnet on. I'm actually going to go and take it tomorrow to get it wheel aligned before the shop shut, before the workshop shuts, so I can drive this thing around after that. Put the fuel pump in it, put the injectors in it, and then drive it around, get it tuned up. Looking forward to it. Can't wait. Okay, update. I have driven it in and had a wheel alignment done. I did get the vacuum hose on for the blower valve. It's all hidden in underneath there. I did put the oxygen sensor in and found out it failed the fuel pressure reg, so I redid the bracket, lifted the reg up, put some heat cover over the fuel line. Same as the power steering line, there's some nice heat cover that covers that because it goes down close to the turbo manifold. We don't want this thing to burn down. Drove it today, didn't really video it because I couldn't get into boost. some driving videos will come up soon when tuning it. So yeah, it's getting there. Now we're going to take the tray off the back so we can expose the fuel pump. Got me buddy here, Noddy. Check out his VK power skid in my videos. He definitely knows how to turn a tyre or two. Shazzy. Most people wouldn't have seen stuff like that before. So now it's got to pop this ring out and get the carrier out, and I'll get back to you. Just smack that ring with the screwdriver and the hammer undoes it. A couple of quick connect fittings using the bottle lid. You can see how I do that in another video. And there you pull the hanger out. It's like an inbuilt swirl pot. We'll take it inside and pull it apart. Got this thing on the table. There's 4 clips around the outside that you've got to hold open and it slides off the bottom. Good shit now actually. You see the standard pump sitting here, we'll unclip that, pull it out. Have a look at getting that walbro 450 in there. Alright, got rid of all the hoses, we're going to do away with all that. We're just getting to the stage now where we've got a die grind out with this long thing in here. Chew out all in there so the 450 can fit up in there. Take it from there. Okay, you can see that I've chewed out all the top there of that die grinder. Just chewed where the factory feed is normally. Cleaned it all out so that the walbro 450 can slide up in there. You can see the tops are different there, so everything slides up in there pretty nice now. Actually slides in nice and tight. I did have to do a bit of voiceover here because I must have had my thumb over the microphone. But yeah, you can see it fits in nice and tight. I'm going to put little slots in either side here of the drill so I can put a hose clamp around it. So we're going to tighten it right up and make sure that that pump doesn't slide down at all. So it should be good like that. Also run the feed from the barb on the hat there down to the pump. Also a return off there, spraying down onto the pump. Might zip tight to the side there. Also got a bit of wiring here to do too. Wiring the plug. You can see where I put the 2 little slots in. I've got the drill in there and just made 2 little slots. Clamps in. Now I can slide the pump in there, clamp it up, should hold it. Alright, I got the pump mounted. It's in there, it's tight. Got a bit of 3/8 EFI line in there. E85 compatible of course, just in case for the future. It'll go on there. Looking pretty good. Factory filter built in there, will just sit inside the tank doing sweet nothing. And this slides into this, the bucket. So I'm going to open all the bucket up. That black line there, going to open all the front of it up. And it actually sits hard against the bottom of the tank and is all spring loaded. So I'm going to leave this bottom part in here where my pinky is, so it still pushes on the bottom of the tank, and all that'll be open for the walbro to feed. So I cut all that out, and I've got to also cut, solder, heat shrink this plug onto them wires. Just going to use the factory wires, gauge wires for now. And yeah, I'll do all that and I'll get back to you once I do that bit. Okay, finish this up. You can see how I've cut the front out of that bucket that slips on the outside. 450's hanging out the bottom there. I did have to get in there and grind it out so the sock had a nice little slot to sit in. You can see the slot through the back there where the sock's sitting, so it's not kinked up, sitting nice. I did bring it up off the bottom a little bit because I don't really want it to suck the stuff off the bottom of the tank. So you can see this sits on the bottom of the tank and spring loaded. So the sock sits up off the bottom a little bit, which I reckon is great. I also bent the fuel gauge up just a little bit so it'll read empty just above the sock, but I'll probably never run it that low anyway. 3/8 line, factory 3/8 feed coming out of the hat, but even though the lines in the car are 5/16, which might have to be changed in the future. But yeah, factory 3/8 feed, soldered and heat shrunk the wires. Just threw a little return on there to try and point the return fuel back at the fuel pump, sort of push it down into the top there, maybe keep it cool. Probably doesn't really need it, but yeah, this thing compresses in the tank, so that hose will get a little bit closer. But yeah, that's how I've put a 450 in the factory bucket. I think it'll work. I think it'll be alright. We'll soon find out. Okay, I got the fuel pump hanger back installed and figured out that the factory feed was actually the 5/16 and the return was 3/8. So I didn't change the hanger, I just changed the lines. I put the 3/8, what would be the return line normally, I just moved it from there and put it back onto the feed, and then I had to make a new return up. Just cut the factory line, just put a bit of hose on there. So at least out of the hat it's 3/8. So later on down the track, when I change the fuel lines for E85, it's 3/8 out of the hat, ready to go. Now I have got the tray all back on after putting that fuel pump in. And I just thought I'd share one of my hiccups on my little drive to get a wheel alignment today. Come back and inspect it, and I'm pretty sure the fitting or on the return line is leaking. So it's one of the problems, I suppose. Everything else went well. I noticed a bit of a leak, so compressor housing off so I can access the 2 bolts, take that off, check the gasket, maybe put a bit of silicone sealant on there, put it back in, nip up the dash 10 line and hope it doesn't leak again. But yeah, just some problems do happen, and I've got a little bit of a leak on the return. We'll get it sorted, then I'll throw the injectors in the map sensor in. Hopefully it makes some boost. Oh, proves I'm only human. Finger tight and no gasket. And you go and find the bag and find the gasket. So, no wonder it was leaking oil. I'm actually surprised it wasn't leaking oil. So we'll get that fixed up. Finished putting that turbo back in after fixing the mild stuff up of forgetting the gasket and stuff. It's all finished, cleaned up, no more oil. See, you've got a bit of blue poo down on there too, seal it up good. Time for injectors. 4 8mm bolts. Here, undo the injector plugs, pop it all out in one piece, get the injectors out. Alright, I've ended up taking that full fuel rail out because pulling the standard injectors out, it's like they were seized in there, it's unbelievable. But I've got 2 injectors there to give you a look at the difference. Seimans or Seimans Deka 80s, standard, pretty similar. Now what I've done is I've put 7 of them in, but I'll just grab a tiny bit of grease and just the tiniest smear around the top there, just so that O-ring slides in real nice, and then hopefully in the future, if I ever have to pull them out, they slide out easily. So I'll put this last one in and push them all back in, clip it all back up, and then we'll look at, then I'll put this map sensor in, goes in the back of the manifold, 2 bar, I got it from BCM, Delco. Oh, you can hear the soccer match on the big soccer fields and it goes in the back, it sits in the back of the manifold. Oh, you can't see it, I don't have a light, but once I get it in there I'll get a little torch in there so you can see where it goes. But yeah, there it is, and it just clips in. There's a little clip it slides on, a little boot, and should be just about ready. Just a quick look at the 2 map sensors before I throw the 2 bar one in. Blue one's the single, green one's the 2 bar. It'll fit the same holder, too easy. Just a quick look where that map sensor is. You can see it sitting in the back there. There it goes, focused. Yeah, there it is in the back there, where the map sensor is. You can see I had to cut the back tangs off so it would go in. But yeah, she's in. Okay, injectors are in, map sensor's in. Gonna bleed the clutch. I've already done it once, but after driving it today I could tell it definitely needed more. So I'm gonna give it another go. Just using this React Performance .4 brake fluid, fill up the reservoir. And I've got my buddy Chris, he's pumping the clutch for me. I'll get under there and show you what's going on underneath. Okay, I'm under the car. I've got a little hose on the extended bleed nipple that I've put on the slave cylinder that goes inside into the slave cylinder. Extended bleed nipple, put a hose on, it goes down to a bucket. 8mm spanner, and I'll get Chris upstairs to push down on the clutch when I open it, push the air bubbles out, then I'll just crank it back shut again to shut it, and then he'll pump again, and similar to brakes, and just a bit slower, and he'll keep topping up the reservoir and we'll get the last of the air bubbles out of this clutch system. Okay, I bled under the car with the bleed nipple until there was no air, and I thought, oh, I'll get me little vacuum pump set up the way I used to bleed the clutch before I put the extended nipples in, and it got another couple of tiny little air bubbles out of it, so there's absolutely no air bubbles in that clutch line now, so it should be ready to go. It's pretty well, it's ready to rip. Clutch is good, got fuel pump in, injectors in, oil leak should be fixed. You know, I've checked everything off, and yeah, we're ready to hunt down a tune. That'll do for this episode. Hopefully it was informative for you. I'm going to get online with my HP tuners and see if I can find a base tune online to save myself putting all the setup in for the injectors and for the 2-bar. Hopefully I can find a base map so we can get right into tuning AFRs straight away with the wideband. But that'll all be in the next video. Get in there, driving it, tuning it, make some noises, hopefully turning some tyres. So hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Any comments, questions, throw them in there. If you liked it, hit the like button, and if you want to keep watching, subscribe and hit the bell. It'll let you know when my next video is.